This is part 2 of our second opinion on sports strategy. In part 1 we asked, is having a rich owner spending tons of money the only way to get success in the Premier League? Our source material were the views shared by 3 ex-Premier League footballers in a recent 2-hour programme. We turned their insights into a Wardley Map. This allows us and you to see what's currently going on at Premier League clubs. And we plotted how to succeed in the league without breaking the bank. In part 2, we're going to use this map to get inside the strategy of 3 Premier League clubs, Newcastle, Brentford and Aston Villa, and we'll explore whether their sports strategy is putting that football club on the road to success or despair. And we're fans too, and we know the passions involved in football, so just to be clear, we're not trying to criticise any particular club, quite the reverse in fact. For those of you in the game, we're just trying to show you how to bring success to your club by using an alternative way of thinking. Before we start, if you're new to Wardley Maps, we recommend watching our video on how to read a Wardley Map first, which you can find at our website, powermaps.net. If you want to understand how we created the map we use in this video, watch part 1 of the second opinion, and you'll find that on our YouTube channel. But if you're ready to start, let's kick off. First on the pitch is Newcastle United. One of the ex-players, who is also the lead expert at the Premier League's main broadcaster, Sky Sports, readily admitted that, while Newcastle United is a big club, it's been demoralising going up there for the last 7 or 8 years, because the football's average, the players and the investments are average, and the feeling between the fans and the owners and the manager is average. So everything's down before the season starts. Most of the blame for how flat Newcastle United is today is placed at the door of the owner. He simply doesn't want to spend money. In fact, he wants out. And in a league where you need to spend £150 to £200 million just to get 3 or 4 places higher, this isn't a good situation. But could a smarter sports strategy help Newcastle get through the next 2 or 3 years until the owner is able to sell? Like most businesses, Newcastle United was put under severe financial strain because of COVID. It now needs fans to return in their thousands to start balancing the books. But there's a massive disconnect between the club's aim of surviving long enough until the owner can sell and the expectations of its very passionate fan base. Disillusioned supporters are threatening to boycott games as there's a sense that the club is sleepwalking into relegation. And this would seriously hit the value of the club, making it even more difficult for the owner to get the price at which he's happy to sell. One of the ex-players argued that if Newcastle is going to turn things around, they're going to need to change managers. But as we saw in part 1 of this video, changing managers can cause as many problems as it fixes. This is because Newcastle, like most English football clubs, lack a clear footballing philosophy. Therefore, any change in manager will mean yet another change in playing style. Players will need time to adapt, and the new manager will demand the club buys new players who fit it better, which is a problem that won't be solved if the present owner is not investing. And if the club hires the wrong manager, one whose style of play doesn't fit with the club's traditions, things can turn bad very quickly. This is why fans have lost patience with the present manager, who, despite being from the area, has a record and style of play that doesn't inspire the fans. Having a director of football could help Newcastle agree a footballing philosophy and a clear playing style that would ensure future coaches and players fit the club. Because having people who fit the club's playing style creates a better connection with the fans, even if it doesn't immediately bring titles or trophies. Newcastle have maintained one of their proud traditions, developing their own players. Yet this advantage may disappear if there's a continued lack of investment in the infrastructure and support player development needs. Fortunately, this reality will not hit Newcastle immediately, as the club is the best of a poor bunch locally. Their local rivals are struggling even more, meaning Newcastle remains the most attractive club in the northeast for young talent. But other clubs, as we will see shortly, are pushing the boundaries here, with forward-thinking coaches developing a generation of talent using progressive methods. Therefore, Newcastle United need to start making incremental moves now that needn't break the bank. And this would be a more viable strategy than hoping a wealthy knight in shining armour rides in to rescue them. Brentford is a club that rescued itself, without spending huge sums of money, and is an illustrative example that clubs like Newcastle could learn from. Brentford are back in the top flight of English football for the first time in over 70 years. But their journey has also been a bumpy one. In 2012, when the club was in the lower leagues, it nearly went bankrupt as it was hobbled by nearly £500,000 of debt. This was eventually paid off by the new owner, and in the decade since, he has spent £100 million getting them into the Premier League. Now this is a lot of money anywhere, except in Premier League terms. For example, Manchester City spent that on buying one player from Aston Villa this season. But Brentford didn't spend their way to success. When they got promoted last year, they had the 10th lowest wage bill in the Championship, the division below the Premier League. What's interesting is what they did with their money. They focused on doing things differently from other clubs, and are continuing to do this today against clubs with even bigger budgets. Now, our ex-players didn't talk about Brentford specifically, so we've done a bit of research on them. In 2015, they controversially sacked their British manager, who had got the club promoted, because he was uncomfortable working with the director of football, a new role to the club. So the new director of football hired a head coach who was comfortable with this setup, and together they created a distinct playing style for the club based on a footballing philosophy which focused on entertaining fans. Entertainment is important to Brentford because they need to work that little bit harder to attract and maintain fans. That's because they're based in London, where there is a high density of bigger, far more illustrious clubs around. Having neighbours like these also mean that Brentford had trouble keeping hold of young, talented players. Bigger clubs with bigger brands and deeper pockets were swooping in for them. And to add financial insult to sporting injury, the league's rules meant Brentford were not even entitled to any compensation for the young players they had been developing. But instead of moaning about the unfairness of the rules, Brentford made a radical move. They closed down their academy. They then used revolutionary analytics to build a profile of the kind of player who fits the English game, and scouted players who met this profile in other clubs' academies. Now, heads of academies have the unenviable task each year of telling a group of 17 to 20-year-olds that they haven't made it and are being let go. But now they could offer players that fitted Brentford's profile a potential second chance at the small London club, making this a win-win for everyone. These newly acquired young players are put in Brentford's B team, and that team is supplemented with players from undervalued overseas leagues who, likewise, fit the Brentford player profile. Brentford then trust their coaching teams to develop the individual players by teaching them the tactical side of the game. And what Brentford have created is a regular pipeline of talent able to step into the first team, inexpensively assembled and schooled in the club's distinct style of play. But Brentford don't just apply their analytical acumen to recruitment and player development. They identified some time ago that set pieces were an undercoached part of the game, even though they account for up to a third of a typical team's goals. Brentford became amongst the first clubs to hire a specialist set pieces coach, which directly resulted in more goals being scored. But of course, once you start producing results, it attracts the interest of the bigger fish in the sea. Yet instead of seeing this as a problem, Brentford sniffed an opportunity. Recruitment out has become a core feature of the club's overall strategy. Brentford develops and then sells their star players, often for profits in the tens of millions of pounds. They then reinvest these profits back into the club's infrastructure and support, so they can identify and develop the next generation of first-team stars. The success of this approach has meant that Brentford have been able to afford a brand new purpose-built stadium at the same time as rising through the leagues. Compare this to some clubs who've had to sell their stadiums just to stay afloat. This new stadium has a larger capacity, which means more matchday revenue. And they added lots of executive boxes to generate significant income from businesses in London who were keen to watch entertaining Premier League games. Proof of the power of Brentford's sports strategy came when they lost their head coach, who was poached by a bigger club who admired the team's style of play. Yet Brentford didn't miss a beat. They got promoted to the Premier League the following season with a head coach who'd previously been the assistant to the old one. This promotion from within, reminiscent of the successful Liverpool boot-room strategy of the 70s and 80s, minimised the disruption a change in management often brings. The club's entire philosophy and business model, developing rather than buying, has been a success on the pitch and off the pitch, and fans buy into it, with many thinking the Brentford way of doing things is far more valuable than any coach or player who might happen to walk through the doors. Brentford shows that while money is required in football, a smart strategy that answers the specific challenges a club faces can help catapult the team and the whole club to success. Our final example is an interesting one: Aston Villa, one of the founding members of the English Football League. While Aston Villa appear to have the sheer financial muscle to make a real impact in the Premier League, they are also combining it with the type of forward thinking shown by Brentford. As at Brentford, Villa's owners took over a club mismanaged by the previous owners. and after rescuing it from bankruptcy in 2018, they installed a director of football and expanded their data-driven approach to recruitment. But with their extra financial muscle, Villa's owners, the third wealthiest in the league, are shopping in different places to the likes of Brentford. Therefore, they established a new elite data-driven recruitment team, the one credited with helping deliver the extraordinary success of Leicester City's Premier League win in 2015. They also sought a head coach who could work with this system, and for that they turned to Brentford's head coach. Dean Smith is a lifelong Villa fan, and this is where Villa's strategy starts to become really interesting. Villa were champions of England in 1981 and were champions of Europe in 1982, and the club today is re-establishing a playing style reminiscent of that great Villa team. A dominant goalkeeper and a centre-back pairing, energetic box-to-box midfielders complementing players with silky skills, rapid wingers, and an exciting double act up top. This recognisably Villa team has reconnected with a fan base that had become disillusioned under previous directionless regimes. Being one of the few English clubs to lift the biggest trophy in club football means the aim for Villa can never be anything less than a return to competing with Europe's elite clubs. And although the owners and CEO have declared that this is their aim, they've been careful to explain that it will be done in a sustainable way and will take time. Therefore, Villa, unlike Brentford, are investing heavily in their academy to develop the stars of tomorrow. Massive improvements in the club's infrastructure, such as the Advanced Performance Centre, has helped them attract key behind-the-scenes talent to work in it. They laud the highly regarded head of a rival academy, who brought his team and some additional leading talent with him. And Villa have been busy hoovering up the best 16 and 17-year-olds from across the UK and Europe, and then playing them in their under-23 team to accelerate their progress. Importantly, they take care to treat the smaller clubs they've been recruiting from with respect and even generosity, something those clubs themselves have gone on record to thank Villa for. Villa are doing this to develop a network of contacts in the game, so that they, as Brentford do with academies, get alerted first when young talent emerges across the country, in this case under-17s. And these clubs, who often rely on the financial windfall that would come from developing talent, know that dealing with Villa will be more profitable than dealing with most other clubs. And the returns on this approach are already visible, with Villa's under-18s winning the prestigious FA Youth Cup last year. Villa are also breaking ground on a state-of-the-art inner-city training centre just outside the country's second largest city. This is an attempt to uncover even younger local talent who will go back into the club's under-16, under-14 and under-11 teams, thereby creating an even deeper reservoir of talent with the club. This will have the knock-on effect of being even more valued by fans as the local talent makes good. Aston Villa are also recruiting rare talent behind the scenes, such as performance analysts and specialist coaches into roles that don't exist in other clubs, like sleep coaches and a set pieces coach. These types of roles are common in the more data-savvy world of US sports, but not widespread in English football yet. This is part of the American co-owners' drive to get the club making decisions based on better information, rather than relying on great judgment, which, he believes, is overrated. Villa's joined-up thinking has meant it is now less reliant on one or two people for the club's success. For example, after 2 years, Villa replaced its director of football with another who, so far, has been a success, with Villa's recent recruitment strategy being widely praised. And this is what a smart sports strategy provides a club: continuity during the inevitable periods of transition and change a football club goes through, without relying exclusively on spend, spend, spend. By better connecting the commercial, operational and sporting aspects of the club, the owners can stop treading water and move the club forward, because getting it right on the pitch means, more than ever, getting it right off the pitch. In summary, if you restrict yourself to activities on the right-hand side of the map, you'd better have deep pockets and long arms, because that's your only move. But if you open up the left-hand side of the map and start some joined-up thinking, you open up new ways to beat your competitors, on the pitch and off, and find a better way to climb up the Premier League than spend, spend, spend. So if you're a football club owner and would like to get a second opinion on your current sports strategy, get in touch and find out what we can do for you.